Hello, and welcome back to Sharing a Chapter a Day. This is Do, Ra, me, and today I will be reading Chapter 117 of Engagement in Peril by Dara, Odoe, Sok. Chapter 117 is titled Shinshin'S Parents and Upbringings. Shinshin's upbringing is worse than that of most normal children in the United States or around the world. It can be compared and seen that he had it harder than my life in the killing fields and upbringing in the various concentration camps of Southeast Asia then. After all, Shinshin was a mistake. One can say he was born to a teenage mother who was only 15 years old at the time. His mother got knocked up and impregnated with Shinshin was the result of some stupid mistake of a drunk Marine who took advantage of a poor, defenseless barmaid during one soulless winter night. It was on the very island that Shinshin had orders for and was going to after Buds. His training and all the shit was done with. It was there in Okinawa, Japan, that Shinshin's Marine father, Corporal Jackson Bradford, was stationed in, and his mother, Kushina Shinagami, was born, lived, was raised, and worked under that fateful night where her placid world was turned and ripped apart by the will of sin and the hunger of flesh by one dumbass Marine. Corporal Bradford had been assigned to the Navy Marine Command in Okinawa, Japan, for about a year now, and he often patronized the Sakura Bar, a small busy bar establishment that was situated near the massive military installation. Bradford had noticed Kushina around and about her the bar, and she had served him several times with beers and some minuscule food and such. He often tried to make conversation with her, but she was too shy or too afraid to reply or just simply didn't understand him. She sensed that he sort of liked her, but she realized that she was too young and didn't want to bring shame to her family or herself. It was a big no-no in Japan to bring shame upon one's family and ancestor like most Asian countries in the vast world. Though Kushina's English was poor and she was extremely shy, she still served all the bar's customers with respect and served them well with her busy body at work all the time. She was one of the only several barmaids there, and she needed to make some sort of living to help out her family, her home, since they was the eldest of three siblings and her parents weren't making much to support everyone. Her mother was always busy with preparing home meals and getting her sibling and her ready for school and various other tasks at the home and about. Her father worked for the local police agency there in Okinawa, who had no authority over U.S. military personnel, whatnot, whose income was much less than that of a private in the U.S. Armed Forces during that time, and even to this day. Although Kushina didn't have to work, the family was just barely squeaking by each month with all their expenses for food, school, and bills and such, but Kushina wanted to help so much to help out her parents and family. It was just the way she was. I'm sure Shinshin got his strong will, personality, and hard work ethic from his mother. The hard work and the effort that he put into his everyday living resembled that of his beloved deceased mother, Kushina Shinagami. Now, on the other hand, Shinshin's so-called father, Corporal Jackson Bradford, was a misguided, lazy asshole from the start. Bradford grew up in the small town of Arthur, Nebraska, located off the 92 and 61 highway. Although Arthur is a very tiny town with a population of slightly over 100 people, Bradford was born as a farmer's son and was raised like such. Shinshin's father knew the many long effort and strenuous hard work that is required of a farmer, whatnot, on a daily basis. That is one of the reasons why he wanted to get away from his family there. He didn't want to work hard at all. Bradford didn't like the waking up early each morning and spending all day long under the hot sun and breaking one's back to milk the cow, feed the chicken, shear the sheep, slaughter the pigs, and grind with the plows on the hard earth to harvest small bits of wheat and vegetable just to live off for another day of that each day for the rest of his life seemed so hard and demanding to Bradford. He didn't want to be like his father and elder brothers, who had been doing this sort of shitty thing for several generations now, and the only way he knew how to get out of his hard work and effort was to enlist and join the United States Marine Corps. Since Corporal Jackson Bradford, intelligent was that of a grade school student, he had no problem enlisting in the Marine Corps. Brain wasn't part of the requirement for people who can squeeze their finger and pull a trigger to shoot an enemy and such. Bradford was a pretty good shooter. Growing up on a farm did give him some opportunity to go hunting small games and large mammals like deers, moose, and bears. His shooting did him well enough to be assigned as a lead for his platoon and such throughout his short career with the Marine Corps. Once Bradford hit the age of 18, he told his parents that he wanted to leave the farm and enlist in the Marine Corps. He had told his parents that he wanted no ifs or buts about it. He would leave and join the armed services then anyway, even if they didn't have their consent. Bradford's father knew that his son was a lazy bum who didn't really want to work, so he didn't really care if he left the farm and do his own thing. After all, he wasn't doing much around the farm anyway to help with the plowing, harvesting, whatnot. His parents allowed him to leave the family's nest to join the United States Marine Corps when Bradford turned 18 years old. Bradford enlisted and left home soon after and signed his obligation document. He was shipped off to Peril Island in South Carolina to go through 3+ months of hard physical training, trained and obligated to be an unregrettable killer and such. Bradford hit some hard time at Marine Basic. He was stupid when it comes to book work and academic accolade. Too stupid for some part and had to be constantly reminded of his tasks, responsibility, and duty throughout his training. But physically he was well put together and had no problem with the physical attribute of the training. You see, where Shinshin got the brain from, he seemed to have gotten the brawn and physical toughness from his father. Bradford managed to get through Marine Basics and was shipped off to station at Okinawa, Japan, that late November of 1979. Destruction of Kushina's innocent. During the festive and cheerful holiday week of Christmas and before the New Year celebration of 1981, Corporal Bradford had visited and patronized the Sakura Bar for about 2 weeks straight. He went there to hang out and drink his daily life away. That's what most GI did during after work and such on their free time, nothing but to drink and get fucked. He spent hours on end at the bar, shooting shots after shot of sake and Japanese beer and whatnot. He had grown a tolerance to the various type of sake and alcoholic beverages there. He just didn't care for himself then, and he was going down the path of self-destruction. During his visit at the bar these past week, he had noticed Kushina and wanted to talk to her. He didn't realize though that how much younger she was, or was she was only a mere 15 years old then. He seemed not to care. After all, she was working in a bar. That made her game. So he thought and wanted to introduce himself to her then. So during several occasions in his awkward drunk stupor, he had said hello and such to Kushina, where her only reply was to bow her head and walk off toward the next customer and such. She was there to work, and he didn't realize or accept that as it is. The only conversation he had gotten from her so far was she took his order of alcohol and some food. Somehow he was scared to tell her more, but in his cold, demeaning mind, he was planning something else, something sinister that even himself wasn't realizing what he was about to do to Kushina. It was then that the innocence of a hard-working Japanese girl was mutilated, torn, and savagely taken from her. It was Christmas Eve 1980. Corporal Jackson Bradford, on his usual route to the Sakura Bar, on his usual drink binge to get wasted and fucked, he told himself that this time he'll be willing to try harder to get the barmaid Kushina's attention and try to get her to sit and talk to him at the bar. He was short to realize that it was just that kind of bar. It wasn't that kind of bar. And she wasn't the kind of, and it wasn't her type of business to entertain gentlemanly needs and such. He wasn't gonna get his nut off then. She wasn't a hoe, whatnot, but he just didn't care, and he wanted something from her, something that would satisfy his sinister urges that night. Right after his watch duty at the command's front gate that evening around 1800 hour, after being relieved of his tasks and duty, he came into the Sakura Bar, ready to get the drink on and talk to Shikina. He was greeted at the entrance by Kushina and several other barmaids there with their cute, strong Asian accent. "Welcome to Sakura Bar," they softly welcomed all patrons to the small establishment. He smiled mainly at Shikina and asked for a stool and table from her. Kushina took up the task of guiding Bradford to his table and ready for his alcoholic order. She knew nothing of his plans or thoughts then. He ordered several cans of Japanese tiger beer and hot sake and a bowl of salted peanut and pretzel to go with it from the picture menu that establishment had created and made easier for foreign patrons to order from just in case the language barrier hindered the communication between patrons and staff. She took his order, shook her head in respect, and made her way toward the back room to get his order. As she went about to get his order, he stood up and hurriedly grabbed her arm and stopped her at her track. Wait a minute. he slightly demanded. "I want to say something. I want to tell you something," while the Marine mimicking his hand and body in strange gesture to her. Kushina, in shock to the sudden grab, stood still and scared of her mind. Other patrons looked on as Bradford tried to say what he wanted from her. With fear in her mind and her body, Kushina listened as he rambled on about his desire for her. Although she had no idea what he wanted from her, she maintained her shy composure and trusted that what he was saying was something about his order and such, something that had to do with the bars and such. She allowed him to finish and once again shook her head, bowed, and went her way to the back room to get his orders. Bradford seemed disappointed and irritated by Kushina's walk-off. He went back to his table and waited. While in the back room, Kushina had to tell her male boss about the incident that had just happened to her in the bar. The boss reassured her not to worry, saying that the GIs are stupid and drunk that way, and for her to go on with his order and such. With little hesitation and doubt about what her boss had instructed, she went about her business of working the bar and serving the patrons, who was in the small Sequoia bar that night. Kushina got all of Bradford's order and returned to his table. Once she had finished placing his order on the counter, he said something else that was incomprehensible to her and the other patrons. Kushina, scared out of her mind about his demand at once, left his side and hurriedly asked her fellow barmaid if they could take her place and serve Bradford instead. With some hesitation, one of the other girls agreed to do the exchange of patrons to serve during that cold night. While Bradford kept drinking and drinking throughout the night, he took soft shots after shot. He seemed to be disappointed, no, angry, about what had happened between him and Kushina, so he filled his anger and frustration with more liquor, hot and cold sake and beer. He just didn't care that night. He stayed at the Sakura bar till its closing time around midnight. He had to be asked and advised several times to leave the bar. He was practically pushed and escorted out of the bar by several of the Japanese mail worker and owner. Once Bradford was out of his building, they locked the door behind him and went about their ways to clean up the bar for another days of service. Like usual, Kushina and all the other staff of the bar shared the task of closing up the establishment, cleaning up, wiping down, sweeping, and mopping the floor and such. Some washed used dishes and glasses, some refilled the empty alcohol beverage bottle with stored fluid from the back room, some wiped down glass windows, and some blew out the lit candle and kerosene lantern that helped to lit up the bar. After all the cleaning and preparation tasks were done all was in order, the bar owner gave each staff their working daily pay before saying goodbye for the night. To all their surprise, their boss had handed each of them small trinkets as a present, since it was Christmas Day and such. Overjoyed, they all thanked him warmly. They bowed and bowed. Also, they all shared and exchanged some small gift with each other after their boss' surprise. After some warm wishes and much luck for their gentle boss, they all left one by one for the night. Kushina got her fair share of tips and gifts and bowed her head goodbye to her boss and fellow staff and made her usual route home that late, snowy, wet evening. Thank you for listening. This is the end of Chapter 117. Be on the lookout for Chapter 118, titled The Rage, Desperate Times, Innocent Lost. This is Doe, Ra, me, and I'll see you later. Thank you.